You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Well, hello, it's Wednesday night. It's Wayback Wednesday. Glad to have you with us tonight. I'm Randy Adcock. Got a lot to cover tonight. Going to go through a lot of stuff and cover a lot of ground. And we wanted to go back just briefly and touch base on a couple things from last week's show. Immediately after last week's show, I started looking into trying to see if I could find any evidence of a picture or any remaining remnants of the old train track spur that we talked about last week, the Tar River Lumber Company spur between Rocky Mountain and Hilliardson up there. And so I was not able to come up with any on my own, but we did get a couple pictures sent to me, and we'll share a little bit later on in the show. And so I appreciate that. But also found a couple interesting maps that I wanted to share with you. One is an overlay from 1919 with a modern current Nash County map. Now I say that because frankly there was no aerial photography being done in Nash County in 1919. So whoever made that map probably, to say it's an exact, when you overlay a current map with an old map, the likelihood of everything being exact is almost impossible. So I don't want to mislead anybody in saying that this is exactly how it was in 1919. But I think it gives a pretty good idea of the pathway of that spur track. It's the best representation I've seen yet anyway. And on the current map, because they're overlaid one over the other, it actually shows some of the landmarks and things that you would recognize today that are superimposed over this old 1919 map. So we'll get to that too. But before we do, let's go ahead, Lee, and put up item number one. I found this plat map. If you ever do any research in land, looking to buy land or evaluate land and so forth, they call a plat map. And I found this plat map from 1918. And I want to draw your attention to a couple of things. Number one, that yellow line running horizontally across the screen there is the track of the spur track as it goes through a section of Rocky Mount. Over the bottom right-hand side, a little curly squiggly line there is Stony Creek. And just above Stony Creek on the right there is what is now called Country Club Drive. Now, if you notice, if you follow that road up until it tees, that road that kind of goes across that name at the top of your screen there, that's actually Hunter Hill Road. And strangely enough, in 1918, Country Club Drive stopped. You see it tees right there at Hunter Hill Road. Now, it was some years later, in fact, Bienvenue Country Club wasn't built until 1923. And so it was some years later that they cut this road through, went on through there to go over toward Bienvenue Road and of course put in Bienvenue Country Club and so forth. But anyway, if you're coming from, say, Inglewood, you're coming down Country Club Drive, you get there to the intersection today where the Pizza Inn would be on your right, the Food Line Shopping Center. At that stoplight there, if you turn left onto Hunter Hill Road, you can see that you go a little bit ways down there, and it says Sharon's Road. There's a white house on the corner there of Nicodemus Mile Road and Hunter Hill Road. That's the old Sharon home place. And that property dates back to this time frame, 1918. And so, and of course, at that point, the Tar River Lumber Company spur track runs almost parallel to Hunter Hill Road. So, by this time, it's come across from the Tar River down there and come across behind the old Kmart Shopping Center and come across there, crossed over by Lowe's, just a little bit north of Lowe's and so forth. And so that's where it comes out at there. So now, having gotten this that far along, let's go ahead, Lee, and put up item number two. This is from 1922, and it's called a soil map. And it shows the different types of soil and so forth. But this is an interesting map, too, because I've highlighted in yellow there the general path of the spur track as it goes through. And there are several things that are actually identified here. Lee, if you would, zoom in kind of right there where it says future site of the Kemp D. Battle home. That is that really pretty two-story home with the brick wall around it. It's kind of catty-cornered across from the Sharon home place and almost directly across the street from the Parkwood Baptist Church. And so that spur track came by there a little bit south and west of the Kent Battle Home. That would have been the Kent Battle Home back in the early days. And as you see, it kind of goes northwest, continues on there, goes by the country club back then in 1922. Bienvenue Country Club had not been built yet. So the country club it's talking about is the one there where the Moose Lodge is today. So anyway, you see the Sharon house there is and when this map was made, the Sharon house was built. I'm not sure exactly what time frame the Sharon house was built, but it was there in 1922. The Kent Battle Home had not been built yet. It's that little kind of oval-shaped green area there where the arrows point to. It says future site of Kent D. Battle House. So by 1922, that home had not been built yet. You see the yellow line kind of goes in between there, just to the south and west of the Sharon home place, and goes on up and continues onward past the. One more thing. That Bunn Avenue there is showing, that's there right there. If you turn right there at the Kent Battle House today, and by the way, Bruce Berry lives in that house today. I mean, if you turn right there, that goes up to the old Bunn place up there. So anyway, let's go ahead and lead number 3. And I just continued this on with this overlay map I mentioned earlier. This is the overlay map. And it's, like I said, it's a current Nash County map that's overlaid over a 1919 Nash County map that actually shows that spur track. So you see Rocky Mount there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. There in yellow you can see where the spur track comes up. And it actually comes up there and crosses over Tar River there by the power plant. By this point it's come by present-day Lakeside Baptist Church. It comes across there, kind of cuts catty-corners behind the power plant, the water treatment plant there, and catty-corners across there by the corner of Sunset Park and of course across Tar River there, and then continues on. It ends up over there where we talked about just a second ago at Country Club Drive. And then it goes on up, and if you zoom in there, Lee, you can see right there where the word Rocky is in Rocky Mountain Mills. If you zoom in on the point that says Rocky, you can actually get a little better indication of where that spur track went. There's the El Jimador Mexican restaurant there. It kind of swings by that. It goes by Lowe's and then kind of heads almost due north, makes a turn, heads almost due north. There you go. You see Capitol Ford there. It goes right by what's present-day Capitol Ford. Kind of goes on across the 301, of course. Keeps on going up there by the Sam's Club. You see up in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, the Sam's Club. Then it makes a little bit of a bear to the right. And let's go into item number 4, Lee, if we could, because we picked this pathway up on map number 4. Here we go. And you see there at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, it's coming up. And it comes on up there a little bit northwest, and kind of turns and goes almost northeast. Goes up a little bit more and cuts back to the left. And goes on up, crosses several little residential sections. Well, today they'd be residential. Back then it was mostly, either swamp. And that's a point I wanted to mention too. A whole lot of the track of this spur track went through swamp. I mean, there was really very little solid ground in a lot of the track pathway. Let's go to number 5 if we could, Lee. I just want to kind of carry this on. And as you go on up, you see there it goes up toward Dorches. We talked about the Dorches School here a couple of weeks ago on the show, but you see the pathway there. It crosses over present-day Bienvenue Road and then goes on up, crosses over Highway 43. 43 is Bienvenue Road. Crosses on over that, keeps on going up to the north. And then number 6, Lee, this actually is a continuation of the map as it heads on up toward Red Oak. As it leaves the Dorches area, there you go. It goes just a little bit to the north and east of Red Oak, and goes on up there. Ellen's store, I don't think there's anything there anymore. That Ellen's store was an indication of the store that was there in 1919 when the original county map was made. And again, whoever made the map I think this might have been the one that was put together by Mr. Wells, John Wells. But in any case, there was no aerial photography done. So this aerial representation is kind of a, if for lack of a better term, we'll say an artist's impression of how the county was laid out in 1919. And so lastly, Lee, number 7, as the spur track continued on, of course, it went on up and crossed over a couple little streams and branches. And as we talked about last week, it ended up there just outside of the Hilliardson community. So it was about a 20-mile long spur track there, which for spur tracks was a very long route to take. And, as I said, it went through some very basically uninhabited terrain and areas where it was just swamps and just miserable conditions. I can't imagine what it would have been like to have worked on a crew trying to put a spur track through some of the territory that they carried that track to. But after last week's show, I got a couple of pictures sent to me. I want to thank Wallace Abernath, who sent us some really neat pictures. Number 8, if you would, Lee. This picture, we're not certain, but we think this is a picture of the construction of the track through a swamp. In any case, you can kind of get a general idea of what it must have been like. And you can imagine the mosquitoes in the summertime, snakes. It was probably just horrible working conditions. In the wintertime, it wouldn't have been much better because it would have been cold and miserable, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. It just would have been absolutely treacherous working conditions. And heaven help you if you get hurt. You have miles from anywhere to get to medical attention. If you would have an accident, it could be life-threatening. And number 9, Lee, this is another track section showing a span of spur track going across a low area, swampy area. And you see it was kind of built up on stilts. So when they would hit these really, really low areas, in order to keep the track level, they would put it up on stilts. And so that's what this section here is. And again, I'm not certain that these are all of the Tar River Lumber Company, but we think they are, and they're certainly a good representation if they're not, of what would have been involved in getting that track put in place. Number 10, Lee. This is actually from a book somewhere, and I'm not exactly sure. I don't recall seeing this particular picture. You see the caption there. It says, this photo may show the Tar River Lumber Company and their private rail line steam engine at their location behind Rocky Mount Senior High campus. The company had a logging railroad that began there and ran parallel to the ACL Spring Hope line across Sunset near City Lake, across Tar River near Sunset Park, through Kmart Plaza and up near Country Club, Hunter Hill area, then on upwards to the Red Oak area. And it says, can anyone confirm? So my guess is this was in a publication, some kind of book or magazine, or maybe a brochure, literature or something. And whether or not it was ever confirmed, I don't know. I won't say for certain that this is what this is. But again, it's a good representation of what it would have been like in the early 1900s. Keep in mind, this track was put in place somewhere around 1910, 1911. And it was operational up to the late 1920s, we know. By 1933, the water treatment plant had been built there on Sunset Avenue. And so I think the spur track by then would have probably, even though it might have been pieces and such of it still in place, as far as it being used, I don't think it was anymore by the time the water treatment plant was put in place in 1933. Okay, Lee. So, I want to shift gears here a minute now. I just wanted to kind of fill you in on some things that I've found since last week's show about that Tar River spur track. I was doing some digging this week and just kind of bouncing around, and I stumbled across an area we've talked about before. It's not really a new area, but you've heard me use the term area of commerce, and they were all over Rocky Mount, these little areas of commerce. Sometimes it consisted of no more than 2 or 3 stores. Sometimes it might have been as many as a half a dozen, but there were little pockets of business all over town that cater to the local community in one way or another. And so, and this one I want to talk about is actually over there on the corner of Falls Road and Church Street. If you remember some years back, Phillips Body Shop was there on that little corner there facing Falls Road. Well, they had an interest on Falls Road and one primarily on Church Street. And then, of course, there was Thompson Nursery there. There was another little diner behind that called the M&T Diner. And there were several businesses that kind of migrated in and out of those businesses during the time that it was a quote-unquote area of commerce. So having said that, I went back to see how far I could go back and see when the first business that had any real literature documentation, I should say, for that area. And so I went back as far as 1920 in the Rocky Mount City Directory, and lo and behold, I found something that kind of surprised me. Now, we talked about on the prior show that there was a bottling company there at one time, and the name escapes me at the moment. But I did not know there was another bottling company there that's very well known. And Lee, if you put up number 11 for our viewers, this is just a short clip here. Oh boy, we got it blew up on us. This is from the 1920 Rocky Mount City Directory. And can we zoom out on that thing, Lee? It does this every now and again when I screen capture one of these ads or listings from the Rocky Mount City Directory. And frankly, I'm not sure why it does it here. It doesn't do it on my computer in my office. There you go. So again, this is 1920 Rocky Mount City Directory. And you see the Pepsi-Cola Bottling Works had an operation there at Falls Road near Main Street. So, like I said, there was another bottling company there, I think in the same time frame. Pepsi-Cola wasn't there very long. If you remember, they were down on the corner of Hill Street and Washington Street and a couple of different locations over there. But I did not recall that Pepsi-Cola was in this area here, but indeed in 1920 they were located right there. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Fast forward to 1937, and I ran across this ad, and by the way, number 12, Lee, and this is not the first year that this business was in operation. It just so happened that this ad appeared in 1937 for Thompson's Thompson Pharmacy. And you see there, it appeared August the 19th, 1937, so we're in tobacco season, obviously. Tobacco market's open, farmers coming to town, bringing tobacco. It's a busy time in that area of Rocky Mount, obviously. And Thompson's Pharmacy was reaching out to these local farmers and those that come from out of town too, for that matter, and saying, hey, come see us. We're your nearest drugstore to the tobacco warehouse, and we extend you a cordial invitation to make this store your headquarters. Try our soda service. When in need of a refreshment, you will like it. We carry Southern Dairy's ice cream. So, a couple interesting tidbits about Thompson Pharmacy. Number one, the man that ran that or opened it up was a man named G. Miller Thompson. Now, I have scoured the web trying to figure out what the G stood for. Possibly George, maybe, I don't know. But I've never seen the man's full name listed anywhere, and believe me, I have looked. He went by Miller. Mr. Miller Thompson was the man who started Thompson's Pharmacy here in Rocky Mount. Here's an interesting twist, though, and we're going to talk more about Mr. Miller Thompson next week because I've got some really good information about him. So suffice it tonight to say he was not from Rocky Mount. He actually migrated here, believe it or not, from Norman, Oklahoma. That's where he was born and raised. He came to Rocky Mount, married a local girl here, and started Thompson Nursery somewhere around 1932 and 1933. As I said, this ad appeared in Rocky Mount Telegram in 1937, but the business had been in operation for several years by the time this ad came out. And I see by the clock on the wall it's time for our first commercial break, so Lee, bring it back to me. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about the businesses that kind of migrated in and out of that little area of commerce there at the corner of Church Street and Falls Road. And so some of them you'll recognize, you'll remember them, they've come and gone. There's one that, frankly, I was really surprised to hear about. I did not remember, didn't know anything about it, so maybe you'll remember, but I didn't. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
There's a main nerve that leaves your back that goes into your hip and goes down your leg. It's called the sciatic nerve. A back injury can put pressure on that nerve, causing pain, numbness, tingling, Chiropractors can actually help that. At the Hammer Chiropractic Center on Sunset, we know exactly what to do. We have very good relationships with the doctors in Rocky Mount. We like to co-manage people's care. Some medications may help us do our jobs, and our jobs may help their medications work better.
Miller Thompson. Around 1933-34, there's a little bit of confusion there because I've seen some references where he left Norman, Oklahoma, and the article, the one I read, was dated 1933, and it said that he had been in Rocky Mount for a year, which means he'd come in 32. But I couldn't find any reference to the business being open until 1934, and the first ad I found was actually in 1937. But interestingly enough, regardless of when it opened, by 1941, Mr. G. Miller Thompson apparently had enough of the pharmacy business in Rocky Mount anyway. Item number 13, if you would, Lee. I found this really surprising. And this was from the Rocky Mount Telegram, January the 16th, 1941. Number 13, if you would. There you go. It says, notice, public notice is hereby given to all persons having claims against G. Miller Thompson doing business as Thompson Pharmacy arising prior to January 5th, 1941, to present the same to the undersigned within 60 days from that date. All persons indebted to the said G. Miller Thompson or Thompson Pharmacy will please make payment to the present proprietors of Thompson Pharmacy for the said G. Miller Thompson, who has sold said business to a limited partnership composed of E.L. Pierce, general partner, R.H. Gregory, that's Henry Gregory, by the way, and R.D. Wimberly, special partners. So, Mr. Pierce, I'm not sure who that was, but certainly Henry Gregory and R.D. Wimberly of Wimberly and Gregory, a very well-known Rocky Mount businessman, at least from this time frame. And so they bought Thompson Nursery, I keep saying Nursery, Thompson Pharmacy, excuse me. They bought Thompson Pharmacy in 1941 from Mr. G. Miller Thompson. And interestingly enough, I'm not sure how much longer he stayed around here, but it wasn't very long because apparently he moved back to Norman, Oklahoma. And so, as I said, next week I've compiled a lot of information about him and his wife and the family dealings and so forth. I could almost make the show tonight about them, but I decided to hold off on that. We'll talk about that next week. So there's a little bit of a mystery there. I'll kind of give you a little teaser about Mr. Thompson and Ms. Thompson, and so we'll get into that next week in a little more detail. Okay, let's move on then. Number 14. This ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram July 19th, 1946. And this was what I was talking about a while ago when I said this was new to me. I never knew Rocky Mount had a Willys automotive dealer here in Rocky Mount, but they did. He said the ad says, you were cordially invited to see the mighty Jeep Farm demonstration Saturday, July 20th, Bob Melton's Barbecue by factory demonstrators. And so this was really neat because what they were promoting here was Jeep. Now keep in mind, this is after World War II. Willys Jeeps are, there were thousands and thousands of them used in the war and brought back from the war. And so these things, soldiers come back from the war, they were used to these Jeeps. They knew about them. They knew how dependable, reliable, how rugged they were. So Willys decided, these things can be used for more than just, running troops around on the battlefield. And so they actually showed these Jeeps being used in farming operations, pulling plows, disking up land. They were four-wheel drive, of course, so they could go by any kind of terrain or any kind of environment. And so there was a farm show showing that you could use a Jeep instead of a tractor to work on the farm. I'm not so sure it was a good marketing scheme, but it was something they were certainly trying to do. And so, but yes, Rocky Mount had a Willys Jeep dealership here in 1946. Okay, now 1947, Lee, number 15, if you would, for our viewers, put that up on our screen. This ad appeared August 19th, 1947. You see it's a wanted ad. Wanted 2 automobile mechanics. If you're good, salary will be more than good. Contact me at once. Ralph G. Brogdon. When I saw that, I had kind of a flashback. We've talked about Mr. Brogdon a couple times in past shows. He was a well-known mechanic, very, very knowledgeable, could work on anything as the story goes. He worked on boats. He used to race boats. He was a boat mechanic in addition to being a car mechanic, truck mechanic, and also, of course, worked on Willys. But you see the address there, 351 Falls Road. And so there my earliest recollection of that plot of land there was where Phillips Body Shop was. I never knew there was a Jeep dealership there at one time, but obviously in the 1940s there was. That's where the Rocky Mount Willis Company. If you notice, the name of the company is Rocky Mount Willis, Willis. So many times we see and Lee, if you would back up just for a minute to the previous number 14. I want to show the viewers here. You see on this one it says, okay, this one here says Rocky Mount Willys, Willy. So same company, same location, 351 Falls Road. I'm not sure who boo-booed here, whether it was the Rocky Mount Telegram that boo-booed, the typesetter, or whether when they put the ad together, whoever put it together spelled it wrong. But in any case, I think Willys, Willys, is the correct spelling for that word. But again, Rocky Mount had a dealership for the Willys Company. Okay, let's move on to item number 16. March the 26th of 1949, this little article appears. Says construction in Rocky Mount remained on an even keel during the past week, according to the weekly report today of George Stoglin, city building inspector. And it goes on to talk about building permits totaling $33,000 were issued. At the very bottom, you see there in yellow, M&T Diners Incorporated. Oh, we get the call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
All right, one other thing while you're talking about those Willis Jeeps that were U.S. Army Jeeps that were a paramount entity in World War II.
Right.
Equipment. Those vehicles had a Continental engine in them that was a flathead, not an overhead valve engine, and there's never been probably one ever built that's any more dependable and with duration, in my opinion, than those engines. They were later used for a long, long time in industrial machinery and welding machines, and just their usage was endless.
Oh yeah, I've read a lot of things about those things. Those engines being used in a lot of industrial equipment. You're exactly right. They sure were.
Were referred to as Continental engines. They were flathead, 4-cylinder engines, and they would run forever if you kept clean out and not let them get too hot. They were very, very dependable.
Absolutely. Okay, buddy. Appreciate it.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Okay. So you see there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, M&T Diners Incorporated, 410 North Church Street. Erection of an all-steel diner cost $7,000, what it cost in 1949 to build an all-steel diner. And by the way, if you ride down there, this would have been kind of behind Thompson Pharmacy, facing Church Street, of course. 410 North Church Street is the address. But you can see the outline of the footprint, if you will, of where this little diner stood. It's a very small place. I'm not sure how many it sat, more than a dozen or two, I would imagine. But anyway, it was there and long gone by now, but you can still see the outline of the foundation of where it was there. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Number 17, May the 6th, 1949, this ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram. Formal dedication, new modern equipment. Above is shown Thompson Pharmacy's new soda fountain, completely modern and designed to render efficient service. Again, 1949 is when they put this new equipment in, and you see there 365 Falls Road was the address for Thompson Pharmacy. And as I said earlier, by this time it was under ownership anyway of Mr. Wembley, Mr. Gregory, and this Mr. Pierce. I'm not exactly sure, his name rings a bell, but I can't quite put my finger on who he was. But in any case, this new soda fountain was put in place, and that was a big thing back in the late 40s, early 50s. A lot of drugstores had little dining booths like that, or bars, I should say. And So anyway, let's move on. Lead number 18, July the 9th, 1949. I wanted to point this out. This ad here appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is an ad for Moore and Phillips Body Shop. Now, in 1949, they were down on South Church Street. The address was actually 249, I think 248 South Washington Street. This was Mr. Moore was the father of Jimmy and Danny Moore, who later would open up Moore's Body Shop over on Bassett Street there, just around the corner from Washington Street. But this was their father. And so Mr. Moore and Mr. Phillips were partners in the body shop business. And in 1949, they were located at, as I said, 248 South Washington Street. Well, you may ask what's that's got to do with the little area of commerce we're talking about on the corner of Falls Road and Church Street. I'll get to that in just a minute. But just keep that in mind that in 1949, Moore and Phillips Body Shop was located on South Washington Street. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Number 19. This ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram August the 18th, 1949. And I mentioned earlier about the farm show where they were trying to convince farmers that a Jeep could be just as useful on a farm as a tractor. And here you have an illustration of a Jeep being used to plow a field. And, a couple things jumped out at me about this ad. Number one, delivered price $1,355 for a brand new Jeep. Of course, they were all-wheel drive. And these things were rugged, reliable, dependable, and as Eric said, they would run indefinitely. As long as you kept oil in them and kept them clean and didn't abuse them, they would run and run and run and run. I don't know that they were ever really well suited for farming operations. However, obviously tractors, kind of have cemented themselves as being the most practical farm implement to do plowing and work in the fields. But certainly Jeeps could, and so they were trying to interest farmers, and I'm sure there were some of these things sold to farmers who may or may not have used them to plow fields with. I suspect as much as anything else, they were probably bought just as another vehicle to drive around a farm. And certainly, as I said earlier, guys who had just come back from World War II a few years earlier, who had the opportunity to drive around or ride around in a Jeep, really kind of felt right back at home again to have one. You notice, by the way, at the bottom of this ad also, the spelling is Willys. And I think that is, I'm not certain, don't quote me, but I think that's the way it was supposed to be spelled anyway. Okay, let's move on then. Lee, number 20, August the 4th, 1949. This ad, or picture I should say, and this is a shot inside the M&T Diner. I was not able to find a picture or photograph of the outside of the M&T Diner, but the caption here reads, and it's kind of comical, it says, "Give me a couple of cackleberries with the eyes closed, pigs to go with them." If the star border pictured above at M&T Diner on North Church Street were ordering it in eat joint jargon, the quotations might fit. Ordinarily, though, the border would use the cut and dried version of, "Please bring me 2 eggs fried on both sides. I'd prefer to have sausage with them." This picture actually appeared alongside a story talking about jargon in restaurants and diners. It was kind of a cute article, and it talked about, the way waitresses and cooks would carry on with each other and how they would rephrase the customer's order. The customer may order 2 eggs, sunny side up or over easy or whatever, and then the waitress turn around and yell out to the cook entirely different description, if you will, of what the customer had just ordered. And so this picture appeared along beside that article talking about the jargon in a joint like this. And that's the way it referred to it, as a joint. So anyway, all right, let's move on then. Lee, number 21, January 20th, 1951. This ad appeared about the M&T Diner, and it says, "M&T Diner will be closed every Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Secure your entry blank from M&T Diner, 410 North Church Street, for the A Greater America contest starting February 1st, 1951 over radio station WCPS. I don't know exactly how long this place was in business. I don't think it lasted too terribly long, 3 or 4 years maybe. I may be wrong. I just don't. It was before my time. Oh, we've got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You on the air?
Yeah, the M&T Diner if my memory serves me correct, in the early to mid '60s, had a fire. They were cleaning the floor with a flammable material, and it got away from them and burnt the place up.
Really?
And Mr. Pierce at Thompson's Pharmacy, they called him Buddy.
Okay.
I didn't know him, but I knew his son Lee, that played football for Rocky Mount Senior High in the '60s. They lived in the 600 block of Peachtree Street, that two-story house.
Okay.
Going down Peachtree Street, it's that two-story house on the left.
That brick house?
Before you get back to Wilkinson School.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about. That's a pretty house, yeah.
Yep, that's where they were.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't know anything
All right.
about the fire. I'll do some more digging on that. Thank you for bringing that to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay. Okay, so the M&T Diner, like I said, I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to do some more digging and see if I can find some articles or something about the closing and the circumstance of that closing. As the caller just said, it very well could have been because of the fire, depending on how bad it was. But in any case, I didn't find an awful lot more ads than what I've shared with you here tonight. So I'm not sure if there was, they just didn't need to advertise. If you think about the location of that diner, you got Parkview Hospital right across the road there, kind of catty-corners across the road. You've got the library kind of across the street from it there. And you've got the tobacco warehouses there during tobacco season. They were hustling, bustling. The Holiday Inn Motel would have been on Church Street a little bit further north. Oh, we've got another call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You on the air?
All right, that place, the M&T Diner, was down there that faced Church Street. The T stood for Tignor, Tignor. The man's first name was Sam. I've never found out what his business partner's name was, first name or last name, and I don't know when the place opened or when it closed, but the T stood for Sam Tignor.
Actually, I think his name was John. I found an article that talked about him, and I thought I had brought it with me. Yes. Well, wait a minute. That was something else. I'll have to do some digging. I thought I brought that with me, and I may have forgotten to bring it. But I believe his name was John Tigmore.
Get it cleared up.
I will indeed do that. Okay, buddy.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Okay. Yeah, interesting little sideline about Mr. Tignor. And like I said, I think his name was John H. And there was another John R. Tignor that I'm almost certain had to be related. But I saw a obituary for John R. Tignor, and it did not list the John H. at all. And the gentleman, the John R., was much older, and so it could have been a father, could have been an uncle, I'm not sure. But in any case, okay, I just realized too it's time for our next commercial break. So let's bring it back to me. When we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other offerings from the Rocky Mount Jeep dealership down there at 351 Falls Road. Talk a little bit more about some of the other businesses that came in and went out. And I think we do have something. I just realized I found a little bit of information about the M&T Diner. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
There's a main nerve that leaves your back that goes into your hip and goes down your leg. It's called the sciatic nerve. A back injury can put pressure on that nerve, causing pain, numbness, tingling, chiropractors can actually help that. At the Hammer Chiropractic Center on Sunset, we know exactly what to do. We have very good relationships with the doctors in Rocky Mount. We like to co-manage people's care. Some medications may help us do our jobs, and our jobs may help their medications work better.
We're back. I was digging through my notes a minute ago, and I do have a page I brought, but it's not the one I thought I had remembered to bring, so I apologize. I'll have that next week. But I do have some more information on M&T Diner. So anyway, let's move ahead, Lee. Let's go to number 22. June 19th, 1951, another ad appeared from the Rocky Mount Willis Company. And you know, I didn't realize that they made so many different types of vehicles. Obviously, they made the Jeep that everybody's familiar with, but they also made this little Woody wagon, is what it looked like to me. If you remember the Beach Boys from the 1960s did a song about the Woody wagon. But anyway, this was the station wagon they referred to it, the Willys station wagon, new for 1951. And you know, these things were well built, very rugged. I mean, another thing surprising to me was that they actually got pretty good gas mileage. Number 23, if you would, Lee. This ad appeared talking about, this was January the 27th, 1952, and this was the Willys Aero model. And you see the headline there, 35 miles per gallon. Keep in mind, this is 1952 now, and this car was getting 35 miles a gallon. It had an 8-cylinder engine. It cruised at 75 miles an hour. It's in a sharp-looking little car. I don't know how many it was. It looked like it would seat maybe 4 adults comfortably. But to get 35 miles per gallon in 1952, and here we are struggling today to get cars making 35 miles a gallon. That's pretty impressive. And Willis was doing it 70 years ago. All right, let's move on then. Number 24, October 15th, 1952, this ad appeared. And keep in mind, all these ads for the Rocky Mount Willys Company were at 351 Falls Road. Oh, we got a call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
All right. If they were in those years getting that kind of gas mileage, wonder why the automotive industry ever wandered away from that capability.
That's a great question.
Think about that real good.
Yes, that's a great question. They certainly had the technology to do it, didn't they?
Wanting to sell gas.
Yeah.
When gas was 20 cents per gallon.
Right.
Goodbye.
Okay, buddy. Bye-bye. Okay. The ad on your screen there appeared October 15, 1952. And you see it says Rocky Mount Junior Chamber of Commerce sponsored the automobile Scotch Light lighted bumper for safety. And down below are the participating service stations. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you see there, Pittman's Esso at 351 Falls Road. Now that is the same address as the Rocky Mount Willys dealership. Just the same year, in fact, 1952, January of 52, the Rocky Mount Willys Company was located at 351 Falls Road. By October of 1952, Pittman's Esso was located at 351 Falls Road. Well, that begs the question, what happened to the Rocky Mount Willys Company? Glad you asked. Number 25, Lee. May the 26th, 1953, this article appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram. Willys Motor Company gets new home. The Rocky Mount Willys Motor Company has moved from its old location on Falls Road to new headquarters at 945 Church Street in the building formerly used by the Easley Motor Company. Okay? So, now if that address sounds familiar, we've talked about it many times on the show. In later years, it was the Volkswagen dealership, and my mind just went blank now. I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, there was a Volkswagen dealership there. And then, of course, most recently, it was Wholesale Paint Center, and Wholesale Paint Center has since been sold to Spectrum Paint. But yes, the Willys Jeep Company moved from the corner there on Church Street and Falls Road in 1953. They moved to 945 Church Street. Okay. Something else that I wanted to just bring to your attention. The man who was actually opened up the Rocky Mount Willys Company was a man named C.B. Harrison. I was not familiar with Mr. Harrison, and I went to digging, trying to see what I could find about him. I thought for a minute he might be related to Mr. Billy Harrison, if you remember, was a Rocky Mount mayor back in the early 1960s. But I could find no familial connection between the two men. Not saying they weren't connected, they very well could have been, but I couldn't find any kind of connection. But Mr. C.B. Harrison was one of these fellows that just had his hands in a bunch of different things over the years. He started this Rocky Mount Willys Jeep Company and ran it for several years, and then eventually he decided to move on and do other things. Number 26, Lee, if you would, February 23rd, 1955, this picture appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and we've actually shared this picture before. I remembered it once I saw it, and the reason I remember it because one of my old bosses is in here. From left to right, J.D. Winstead, we talked about him not too long ago, Rocky Mount pilot in addition to owning the Auto Equip Company. And then next to him is Mr. C.B. Harrison, who also ran Browning Auto Parts. I can't believe I did not know this man, because at one time I knew every one of these gentlemen. I thought I did anyway. Grady Davis was my old boss man at Davis Company Auto Parts. H.R. Malcolm at Motor Bearings and Parts, I remembered him. Ben Winstead Jr., of course, at Rawls and Winstead, Napa Place here locally. Mr. J.R. Norris ran Shaver Battery Company down there on Hill Street. But anyway, Mr. C.B. Harrison had been involved with a lot of different things in town, and he managed to open up and start several other businesses. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. We've run out of time here. Number 27, July 25th, 1959. There was another gas station that opened up. If you remember a minute ago, we showed you that was a Pittman that opened up a gas station there at the location where the Jeep dealership used to be on corner Falls Road and Church Street. He wasn't there very long because in 1959, Mr. James Herbert Lane opened up a Lane's SO station there. I guess he just took over the previous station that was run by Mr. Pittman. But anyway, there was a Lane's SO service station there in 1959. Okay, now let's move on. Number 28, Lee. The 1960 Rocky Mount City Directory had this ad for Moore and Phillips Body Shop, and you see the address there, 357 Falls Road. Now, if you remember from a few minutes ago, we talked about them originally being down on the corner of South Washington Street, well, not the corner, but on South Washington Street. And so they moved from there. They were in there in the early 1950s. They moved from there to this same location, 357 Falls Road. And you notice there's a little bit of discrepancy about these addresses. There's a 351 we just saw for the Lane's SO station. This 357 is from Moore and Phillips Body Shop. But I think, if memory serves, because I remember when the Phillips Body Shop was there on the corner there, and I don't think there was any other building there on the corner besides Phillips Body Shop by the time Phillips Body Shop was there. So anyway, so moving on, Moore and Phillips was there in 1960 at that on the corner there. All right, let's move on. Number 29, September 8, 1961. I mentioned Mr. Harrison was a busy fella, and in September of 61 he opened up Harrison's Soda Shop, a light lunch and grill restaurant that will cater to downtown workers, opened today in the 100 block of North Church Street. C.B. Harrison, formerly owner of Browning Auto Parts and Rocky Mount Willys Company, is the owner and manager. The new downtown restaurant will open at 7 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock each evening, 6 days a week. You talk about some grueling hours to be in business and be open and dealing with the public. 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. Oh my goodness, I can only imagine. It was located next to Planters Bank on Church Street drive-in office across from the Sears building. So I do not remember this place. It must have been before I came along. But in 1961, Mr. C.B. Harrison was running. He had gotten out of the auto parts business, had gotten out of the Jeep Willys business, and was now running a soda shop. Number 30, Lee, September 22nd, 1961, this ad appeared. Have you tried Harrison's Soda Shop? The food is great. Have breakfast with us next to Planters Bank Drive-In across from Sears, 131 North Church Street. Okay, fast forward a couple years to 1965. Number 31, Lee. Rocky Mount Telegram had this article appeared in the Rocky Mount in the paper, July 9, 1965. Dissolution of the partnership in the Moore and Phillips Body Shop at 357 Falls Road was announced today as one of the partners, Alwyn Phillips Jr., became the owner of a new firm at the same location to be known as Phillips Body Shop. And it goes on to tell about the business, how they got started, how they were partners together. A couple things about Alwyn Phillips that I never knew. It said he was a veteran of naval service in World War II. He was actually from New Bern originally. He first became interested in the vocation while serving as an aviation metalsmith in the Navy. At the time, he was living at 1320 Rosewood Avenue with his wife, the former Joyce Fuller of Rocky Mount, and their 2 children. So the partnership between Mr. Moore and Mr. Phillips parted ways. I'm sure it was amicable. I think, in fact, the article says as much. And then, of course, Alwyn Phillips took over and ran Phillips Body Shop for a number of years there on the corner. And, of course, Mr. Moore retired, and his 2 sons, Jimmy and Danny, took over the business and ran it as Moore's Body Shop. Okay, Lee, let's move on then. Number 32, Rocky Mount Telegram had this article, or this ad appeared December 19th, 1965. I mentioned Mr. Harrison got around. He was a busy fella. Got a call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
All right, that thing we were talking about the sandwich shop down there, the Harrison fellow run next to the Planters Bank's drive-in bank.
Right.
Rocky Mount. Planters Bank was the first bank in Rocky Mount to have a drive-in banking circumstance, and that was a big amenity for people. And anybody that wanted to get in and involved in that, they wanted to be around that because it was a popular circumstance to go do banking and not have to go in a building.
Oh, yeah, I love drive-through banking. I do it all the time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. All righty. Number 32 is on the screen there for you now. This is ad appeared December 19th, 1965. And I mentioned Mr. C.B. Harrison got around. By 1965, he was actually working at Rose Buick Company as a salesman. He had certainly some experience in the automotive industry, running the Willis Jeep place and running Browning Auto Parts. I guess he got tired of flipping burgers and being in the restaurant business and went to work for Rose Buick, selling Buicks. Okay, Lee. Now number 33, October 26, 1966. Here's what I remembered I had, and this is not the same article that I wanted to share with you tonight. This is interesting here. It's your move, the ad says. The M&T Diner building, stock and equipment is available as a wonderful business opportunity for an enterprising person. Where else can you go into business for $3,950, which is $1,200 down? Owner will finance the rest on a monthly basis. And you can see there at the bottom, contact Ray Watson Agency for details. So, as I said, I did have some information, and I must have left it laying on my desk. I apologize. But Mr. Tignor was a partner. I too was unable to find out who the other entity was. I thought it might have been his wife, but it wasn't. Her name was something else entirely. I've got that information too. Let's move on, Lee. Number 34, June 18th, 1974. I don't remember hearing about this. This is actually just outside of Thompson Pharmacy there. And that culvert that runs between the library and the old Parkview Hospital, big ditch there, it actually runs underneath this building. And after some heavy rain, just outside of Thompson Pharmacy, the ground collapsed and a storage building out behind the place collapsed too. And the caption reads, "Culvert gives way. Thompson's Pharmacy and Gift Shop on Falls Road was damaged Sunday night when a storm culvert under the shop caved in following heavy rains in the area. In the top photo, city crews dig an emergency drainage system to take care of the water in case it rains again before the culvert can be repaired. Bottom photo shows an area approximately 10 by 20 feet in size after the floor of a storage room caved in at Thompson Pharmacy when the culvert collapsed." So heavy rains, I guess, undermined the integrity of the culvert there running underneath these buildings, and literally the ground gave way like a sinkhole. Oh, we got a call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Yes, Wayback Wednesday. Y'all doing all right up there on Wayback Wednesday?
Yes, sir, doing fine. Hope you are.
I am. What's the topic?
Oh, we're talking about the Falls Road Church Street area tonight.
All Falls Road. Y'all talk about that a whole lot, don't you?
Different nights, different topics. We kind of get around.
Yeah, you get around a whole lot. I tell you that. You're doing a good job. Y'all keep Tarboro and Rocky Mountain informed about a whole lot of stuff, don't you?
Well, thank you. We try to. We sure do.
And y'all just keep up the good work. People send you pictures in, and they're good pictures, and it's just a thing that Rocky Mountain needs to know, and it's things that Tarboro needs to know, so we can be informed. And you do a good job, and I appreciate you. God bless you, and God bless the crew that works on that station.
Well, thank you for your kind words. We appreciate your viewership. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.
We'll see. Yes, sir.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye. Okay. We're almost out of time. I had a few more pictures to get to. I'll save those for next week, and I'll try to get some more. I'll try to remember to bring my other pictures about the M&T Diner. Like I said, I did have some information that I intended to bring, and I just walked out and forgot it, so my apologies for that. Folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. We've run slam out of time again. Thank you so much for calling in. Those that called in and shared your memories with us, we appreciate that. Thank you for watching. Those from Rocky Mount, Tarboro, and all around, we appreciate you as well. That's going to do it for us. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to one another. We'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.